Chris Parker here with the Leader Matters podcast for today. Talking about leadership lessons from Parker Resources. We got 100 different lessons through this series, running all through 2022. Today, we're all the way on to lesson 6. Every place is different because, every episode been starting talking about how leadership is hard. There's no magic bullet. You got to find a better leader, whatever. But I don't know if this will fly in the face of what I'm trying to accomplish here, but there's no magic one formula to make all this work. And I think so. The first 6 lessons of this were all generic things. So next week, we're going to talk about specifically relationships, and really about 20 episodes in a row about relationships. The next about 20 episodes are about communication. The next 20 are about toughness. And those being the 3 pillars that leaders really have to deal with. But the first 6 were all about general things. So we talked about everybody wanting to be the leader. We talked about what's the purpose of a leader. We talked about relationships, communication, and toughness being the 3 pillars of leadership. We talked about worrying about things you can control. We talked about coming up with a real plan, understanding how vision, methods, and assessments work. This is the last of the generals, the 6 first episodes, which were all about things that I thought every leader need to understand before we even got into the specifics. Every place is different. Meaning, don't think you have this one magic way to be a leader at a place. Every place is different. I come from a coaching background, athletics, where every team is a little different. Some people go undefeated. That's the best they can do. That's great. Some people win half their games, and they're just as good a coach as the one that went undefeated. They just didn't have as good of players. Every place is different. Some places have great facilities, some don't. Some, are in the city, some are in the rural area. Every place is different. So an important leadership lesson for you is whatever you're doing, think about how every place is different. I mean, what you say, well, what do you know? What are some ways you can identify when you go to a new place, how you need to handle it slightly different? I mean, the general principles are going to be true everywhere, but you need to understand the slight differences at each place. So one is you got to learn the place. First step, learn the place. You go to a new place. So let's just say hypothetically, you get a new job. You're the leader of this business. You're the head coach. You're the athletic director, whatever you are. You come in. Don't come in telling them how dumb they are and everything they need to be doing. That doesn't work usually anyway. So learn the place first. What do they have? What do they do well? What is their biggest need? These are the 3 things you're really asking. What do they have? What are the assets here? So I'll give you some examples. Like I was the head football coach in Pickens High School, where it's a rural community in North Georgia, and they were not good at football. I get there and we're trying to get better. The first thing we say is, what do we have? Well, we got one high school in the county. That was a huge advantage, just one high school. Everybody pulls for us. I had been in bigger schools in Metro Atlanta where, the grocery store had to sponsor 4 different teams and all that. We didn't have any of that. That was what we had. We needed to know. There were several other things, but we needed to identify, what do they have? What does this place have that makes it special or could be good? And you say, what do they do well? Well, they're good at this. They're good at this. They're good. Maybe you're talking about a coaching situation. Maybe they're good at fundraising, but they struggle on the field. Or maybe they're good on offense, but they struggle, to do this. Or what is it? What's going well with this organization? And then obviously, what's the biggest need? There's usually, if you're coming in new, there's sometimes tons of needs. But sometimes you get into the weeds on all the different needs that a place may have. I would always want to identify what's the biggest need. So I'm going to ask everybody that's been there these 3 questions. Like, what do we have here? What's special here? What do we do well here? And what's the biggest need here? I'm just going to gather information. Now, you're going to get some different answers, but if you ask enough people those questions, you're going to see some consistency in the answers to getting a pretty decent idea of what the answer to those 3 questions are. Then you're going to have to work on mixing plans. You're talking about every place is different. By mixed plans, I mean, take your philosophies, your ideas, and let's implement them into those 3 answers. Because just saying this is how it's going to be is the greatest way for it not to work. And, to keep the coaching analogies, you get guys coming in from a really big school, a really affluent school, nice place, a lot of money, whatever. They go and leave that school and go to a place that's totally different, and then want to do exactly the same practice, exactly the same format, whatever that they did at their old place. It's not going to work. Don't act like you had the magic answer, and don't tell them, well, we won the championship whenever doing it this way. Well, that's not going to have any bearing on this. Every place is different. If it's a small school or a big school, if it's a small business or a big business or whatever you're trying to be the leader of, you need to mix plans. You need to mix your plan with their plan. So how do you know how to do that? Well, I thought of these things. What do you know about the things that need improvement? So go back to the first three questions. You go back and you say, what do they have? How can I accentuate that? What do they do well? How can I accentuate that? Keep the good things and add even to it. And then lastly, the bigger one for this is, is their biggest need? And you say, well, what do I know about their biggest need? If they struggle to raise money, am I a good fundraiser? Or how can I go be? Is there somebody I can go talk to be a better fundraiser? Because I know that's such a need right now. So ask yourself, how can I accentuate the things they're doing well? How can I help with the things in improvement? And so mix it in, come up with a plan. But the last tip I would give you is think about how you look and sound. Remember, you're trying to be a leader for a long term. You're trying to be successful for a long time, not just to collect one paycheck and say, hey, good for me, I got to be the leader for a day and a half. You're trying to be the leader long term and be successful. You need to think about how things sound and look. You don't want to just come in there telling them this is stupid, this is how it's going to be, whatever. Think about how that sounds to somebody that's been there. Yes, you may have to mix something up, and yes, somebody may get their feelings hurt, and yes, they may have to move on. That's fine. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, are you putting this in ways that is a mixed plan? If you're not, you don't get to be upset later when they got their feelings hurt. If you are and they got their feelings hurt, then that's fine. That's them. They can go on. You can't control that. That was what we talked about yesterday. So think about how you sound, think about how you look, but then come up with a plan on how to fix the things that they're struggling with, and then come up with ways to keep all the things that are going well about the place, and add in a wrinkle here and there if you can to help them, make it even better. The last thing I would advise on this particular lesson is this phrase: be logical in your approach. I think when people ask me how we were successful at some of the things I've been over the years and been a leader, it's been being logical in my approach. I've been able to figure out what's realistic, what's attainable, and get there. And I'll tell you a great example in coaching is you get people who they get a job and you say, okay, what we talked earlier about vision and methods and assessment. And we talked about all that. And you say, what's going well? What do they need to work on? Well, when they're asking themselves those questions, they're saying, well, we're going to win the state championship. That's great. I think that should be your ultimate goal, to win the state championship. But if you're not very good, if your team hasn't won a game in a couple of years, you're probably not going to win the state championship. A realistic goal might be, can we get in the playoffs? Realistic might be, can we move the football at this rate? Can we play? If you're in the business world, realistic maybe just, can we increase the productivity at a certain level? What is realistic and what is attainable? Come up with logical things that you can do. And then when you get them, if you're a business, you may say, let's get 20 new clients this month. Is that realistic? Is that attainable? Or should you say 10? Or should you say 100? What's realistic and attainable for you? Don't just get so excited that you're the leader that you're selling this vision that can't happen. Remember, the key is vision with methods, with assessment. Be logical in your approach so that you can reach these goals, this assessment. And that really is how you can understand different places. The best leaders are going to be able to be successful leaders in totally different places, but they are going to have to learn how to adjust. And these are some things you can do to help yourself adjust. Again, ask them what they have, ask what they do well, ask what's their biggest need. You got to figure out what makes that place special before you got there, and then really accentuate that, and then figure out what's the biggest need or the biggest hurdle and help them get over that. So be realistic in your approach, make sure you have things that are attainable, just be logical, use some decent common sense on what this place can do and can be. At Parker Resources, go to parkerresource.org if you want to see everything we're doing. Excited to offer several books, podcasts, platforms, documents, etc., to help coaches and ADs get better. And now through this, trying to help leaders of all kinds. So hopefully it helps out. I really enjoy doing this. I really enjoy the platform of organizing my thoughts, trying to put all this together into a book format as well down the road. So hopefully you're getting something out of it. Look forward to hearing from you. Feel free to give us any feedback, and we'll see you next time.